Eric Clapton is often called one of the best guitar players ever. His life story mixes huge music success with really hard personal problems. He fought with drug and alcohol problems, had a messy relationship with Pattie Boyd, and lost the son Connor. In a terrible way. This shows us a man who went through the worst times and tried to fix his life through his music. In the exciting book-crazy world of the 1960s, Eric Clapton was becoming one of rock's biggest stars. With bands like the Yardbirds, Cream, and later his own music, he was getting famous for his amazing guitar playing, and soulful blues style. But fame, as you would soon learn, was good and bad at the same time. Clapton got caught up in the wild rock and roll lifestyle. It was a world where trying new things wasn't just okay. It was expected. It was a time when drugs and alcohol seemed as important to the music world as the music itself. For Clapton, the idea of escaping from all the pressure was too strong to say no to. At first, alcohol gave him that escape. It made the worries and fears go away even though he was successful. But as he got more famous, the demand and pressure got bigger too. The quick relief that alcohol gave him wasn't anymore. As time went by, having a simple drink to relax became a need that he couldn't control and took over his life. Alcohol's pull soon led him to something worse: heroin. This drug promised a deeper and more complete escape. For Clapton, heroin became more than just a way to deal with problems. It became something he was obsessed with. His addiction was so bad that people say he spent $16,000 a week on heroin. That's a huge amount of money even for a rock star. The drug separated him from his friends, family, and bandmates. It built a wall around him that no one could see, but no one could break through either. He couldn't be reached and was trapped in a prison he made for himself. As his need for drugs got worse, his musicals started to get worse too. Clapton, who used to be a respected guitarist who could amaze audiences, now found himself having trouble performing. His once amazing presence on stage got dimmer. His passion was dulled by the fog of drugs. He missed shows, messed up performances, and lost the respect of people who once looked up to his work. His career that used to be full of firmly seemed headed for a sad ending. Friends and other musicians watch it helplessly as Clapton's addiction got completely out of control. They worried more and more with each failed concert and missed chance. The man who had amazed audiences with his soulful playing was disappearing, and there seemed to be no way to help him. Then in 1971, things hit rock bottom. Clapton's performance at a London concert was so terrible that it forced the people closest to him to step in. They came together, desperate to save this man they admired and loved. The intervention was raw and painful. Friends told him about the damage his addiction had done to his life, his career, and their friendships. Their words cut through the fog of addiction, and for the first time, Clapton saw how far he'd had fallen. His loved ones begged him to get help. And with their support, Clapton went to treatment. It was a turning point, but the journey to bind Sabre was far from over. Heroin was only one part of Clapton's battle. While he managed to break free from it, he soon found himself caught by another enemy: alcohol. Being sober from heroin had left an empty space, and Clapton wasn't ready to face life's challenges without a crutch. He turned to drinking. Alcohol filled the emptiness that heroin left behind, becoming a new addiction that was just as destructive. This time his addiction was even more sneaky, creeping into every part of his life and damaging his relationships and career even more. Clapton may have escaped heroin's hold, but his battle with addiction was far from over. The road to recovery was turning out to be a winding, dangerous path that would test every bit of his strength and toughness. While fighting his addictions, Eric Clapton's personal life was a storm of emotions, wants, and heartbreaks.
A menace.
He was building his career as a guitar legend. Clapton was dealing with a love so strong it almost destroyed him. he had fallen deeply and obsessively for Pattie Boyd, the wife of his close friend and famous Beatle, George Harrison, died to Clapton. Pattie wasn't just a beautiful woman. She was his inspiration, an impossible dream, a living example of everything he couldn't have. His love for her burned through his music, most famously in Layla, a song that's full of raw longing and desperation, released in 1970. Layla was Clapton's plea, a way to turn his heartbreak and frustration into something that would last forever. But for years, his love wasn't returned. It was a painful reminder of the happiness just out of his reach. Their story changed in 1979 when Pattie divorced Harrison. By then, her marriage with George had gone through its own problems, and Pattie, tired from years-of unhappiness, finally turned to Clapton. They got married, but the fairy tale romance Clapton had imagined was quickly replaced by a much darker reality. Clapton's addiction was getting worse, and his marriage to Pattie was overshadowed by his drinking and the crazy behavior it caused. The same intensity that had driven him to write Layla became an unpredictable, sometimes scary force in their lives. Clapton was no longer just a loving boyfriend. He was an addict, unpredictable, unreliable, and often unreachable. The man who had once promised her throughward was now lost in his own darkness, leaving Pattie to wonder if the man she'd fallen for was beyond saving. Their marriage became a tragic love story full of challenges that pushed Pattie to her limits. Clapton's alcoholism turned him into a stranger who had fits of anger and recklessness. He was a man who went back and forth between adoration and neglect. Pattie would later tell stories of his abusive behavior, both with words and physically remembering. Painful reality of living with someone whose love for her seemed less important than his addiction. His drinking fed his insecurities, leading to jealous accusations, mood swings, and worst of all, cheating. The man who had once worshipped her was now someone she couldn't recognize. A man whose self-destructive behavior left scars that time alone couldn't heal. Clapton's affairs were another source of pain for Pattie. Each one took away from trust and love she had tried so hard to build. One affair led to the birth of his son Connor with Italian model Lori Delanto in 1986. For Pattie, this was a betrayal that hurt deeply, an open wound that no apology could close. Clapton's betrayal wasn't simply because of his addiction. It was a reminder of the deep problems that addiction had made worse, proof of the emotional distance that had grown between them. By 1988, after years of trying to keep their marriage together, Pattie had reached her breaking point. She filed for divorce, saying his alcoholism and cheating were the final reasons in a marriage that had been damaged beyond repair. For Clapton, losing Pattie was a crushing blow, but at the time he was too lost in his addiction to fully understand how serious his actions were. The woman had once seen as his salvation was gone, leaving him to face the mess he had made of their relationship. Their love story, which had started with sack passion, had become a warning tale, a reminder of how addiction can twist Levento something unrecognizable, of how even the deepest bonds can be broken by problems that aren't dealt with. And yet even after all the heartbreak, Clapton's memories of Pattie would haunt him, a constant reminder of the love he had wasted while looking for temporary relief from his own pain. In 1991, Clapton faced an unimaginable tragedy. His 4-year-old son, Connor, whom he had with Italian model Lori Delanto, died after falling from the 53rd floor window of a New York City apartment. The loss devastated Clapton, throwing him into deep grief. After this happened, he wrote Tears in Heaven, a touching song that expressed his sadness and longing. This time became a turning point for Clapton. The pain of losing Connor forced him to confront his addictions head-on. He got treatment and embraced sobriety, realizing that to honor his son's memory, he needed to change his life. Embracing sobriety was a challenging journey for Clapton. He threw himself into his music, putting his emotions into his art. In 1998, he started the Crossroads Center in Antigua, a rehabilitation facility aimed at helping others overcome addiction. This project was proof of his commitment to sobriety and his desire to help others facing similar struggles. Clapton's music during this time reflected his personal growth. Albums like Pilgrim 1998 showed a more thoughtful and mature artist. One who had faced his demons and came out with a renewed sense of purpose. Today, Eric Clapton no longer hides from talking about his darkest hours. Time and recovery have allowed him to look back with a mixture of regret, pain, and acceptance. He speaks openly about the suffering his addictions caused to those closest to him and the destructive choices he made dealing the way. He doesn't hide from the truth. He knows that his actions left deep scars on others. Most heartbreaking lion. Pattie Boyd, the woman he once loved but ultimately hurt. Clapton is honest about the guilt he feels for the years lost to addiction, for the moments he sacrificed because of his cravings, and for the memories he missed because he was too clouded to live them. His journey has made him painfully aware of the image addiction causes not just to the addict, but to everyone who cares about them. And yet, even in the middle of all this regret, Clapton speaks passionately about the possibility of forgiveness and redemption. His message is one of hope, not just for himself, but for others who are struggling. For Clapton, forgiveness is not just about asking pardon from others. It's about forgiving himself, a process that has taken him years to embrace. He believes that people can change, that life offers a chance to rebuild what was broken, to mend even the most damaged relationships. Clapton has come to realize that although he can't erase the past, he can use his story as a light for those who feel trapped, and from that it's possible to rise from ruins of one's own making. Clapton's story is a powerful example of resilience. Despite how deep his despair was, despite the destruction his addiction caused, he has found a path back to himself. Today, he continues to share his music, his story, finding purpose in helping others navigate the dark waters of addiction. Through his advocacy, work, and his music, Clapton has become a voice for those who feel voiceless in the grip of addiction, reaching out with understanding born from his own painful experiences. His own journey has given him a sense of responsibility to help others, a duty he fulfills with quiet humility and a deep understanding the battles that still rage for so many. When Clapton thinks about his life, he speaks of music as his salvation. To him, music was more than a career or a talent. It was a lifeline in his most moments. Music provided a way to process his pain and to communicate feelings he could never put into words. Through songwriting and guitar, he channeled his anguish, his regret, and his longing for peace. Songs like Tears in Heaven, written after the tragic loss of his son Connor, allowed him to face his sorrow and, in a way, begin to heal. For Clapton, music became a path to forgiveness, a way to express his sorrow, seek redemption, and ultimately find some measure of inner peace. Eric Clapton's journey is proof of the unstoppable power of the human spirit through immense talent, devastating loss, and a relentless pursuit of redemption. He has created a legacy that goes far beyond the limits of his music. Today's life offers a powerful story of hope, serving as a reminder that even when facing life's greatest struggles, there is always the potential for healing. For Clapton, redemption is not a destination but an ongoing journey, one he continues to walk with courage, resilience, and a quiet determination to make peace with his past. In sharing his story, he offers a hand to others, encouraging them to find strength in their battles, to seek forgiveness, and perhaps most importantly, to believe that even the most broken lives can find a way back to wholeness.